Mental health in the hospitality industry is such a big red flag right now. People would much rather spend more time concerning themselves about where their cow is coming from, which is fine. You should be worried about where your food's coming from, but also you should be worried where your people are coming from. It's starting to teach the young cooks coming in that it is okay to be vulnerable and sensitive and be in touch with your feelings and be empathetic towards your fellow chefs and cooks.
Welcome to Career Essentials, a new podcast from Tech Life Today and Nate. Career Essentials offers real-world advice and insight into different careers and career paths. We feature the stories and experiences of Nate alumni with lessons for everyone. I'm Brian Allery. I'm a writer and editor for techlifetoday.ca. In our first episode of the Career Essentials podcast, I'm talking to an Edmonton chef and restaurateur who's doing his part to change kitchen culture and start conversations about mental health. Steven Brochu is a Nate Culinary Arts grad and owner of Milkcrate, a cafe and catering company that he founded in 2019. A year later, in the middle of a pandemic, Brochu launched Milkcrate Listens. It's an initiative where fellow chefs and others in the hospitality industry can ask questions or share experiences related to mental health. Brochu shares with me how Milkcrate Listens came about and why the restaurant industry is overdue for a serious conversation about mental health. And he'll share some ideas about what changes are needed to ensure the well-being of employees. To start out, I should mention that this episode was recorded in December. It was just a couple of days before the latest public health restrictions that closed most restaurants to in-person dining. Those restrictions added even more uncertainty to already stressful times. Thank you for joining us today, Steven.
Thank you very much for having me on.
So, given the situation we're facing today, a question like, how are you? It kind of feels like a loaded question. How important is that question in your industry when you're having conversations with your staff and others?
That's actually a really good question, because the how are you being a loaded question is so important, and it almost kind of needs to be now. 2019, you could ask someone how are you and you wouldn't be paying attention to their answer, just like whatever, like hey. But now if you're with your family or on the job site or in the kitchen and someone is asking you how are you, there's an open door there for you to tell them honestly how you're doing. And you can approach it with, they're probably not doing great either. We're all suffering from this. So it is absolutely 100% okay for you to say, not well. And here's what I'm going through right now. Do you have time? Yeah, so if you're asking that question, be ready. Be ready to have a real conversation. And it just might make you a better person too, coming out of this. You might be able to train your empathy a little bit more.
Are you having those conversations regularly with your staff?
All the time. All the time. I'm prepared to walk in to my kitchen and ask someone how they're doing. And if I hear an okay or fine or, yeah, I had an okay night, I'm ready with follow-up questions. Just fine? Just okay? It sounds like you're a little upset. Is there something I can do for you right now? Or do you just want me to give you some space? Oh, I just want some space. All right, cool. Well, just know that, hey, I'm going to be here for the next couple hours. If you need me, come grab me. We can go grab a coffee somewhere. Now, that's unfortunately the position that I've found myself in as a leader, and I do have the time to have those conversations. But I know that there's some that don't, and that's okay too. But you need to be able to make yourself available right now.
There's a lot of research out there that shows mental health is a significant issue for the restaurant industry. Why is that?
The reason why mental health in the hospitality industry is such a big red flag right now is we don't have the funds to easily access a private therapist or a counselor. And it's easier right now for us to grab a six-pack or go to a bar or drugs or anything else but sitting down in a room on a Monday morning when you're hungover talking to some guy about your feelings. And unfortunately, we haven't trained our staff to know that that's an option. And it's starting to come around now. It's starting to teach the young cooks coming in that it is okay to be vulnerable and sensitive and be in touch with your feelings and be empathetic towards your fellow chefs and cooks. And to know like, oh, hey, like, my friend over here is actually having a really hard time. I actually know of a hotline or a group of people that can help them. It's coming along, but it is going to take a while.
How much of this issue has been influenced by stereotypes of the restaurant industry? You know, the idea of the rebel cook or the punk in the kitchen. Anthony Bourdain romanticized some of the less healthy aspects of the industry in his book, Kitchen Confidential. Is that something you're still having to overcome?
That is a very good question. I love Anthony Bourdain. I love it. I read Kitchen Confidential. It got me into cooking. I read all of his work. It's a great book, and unfortunately, it was his best. And I read it. It got me into the industry. I thought, this is rock and roll. This is cool, especially as a young teenage boy in a home ec class, learning that what I'm doing here in this foods lab can actually translate into me drinking beers on top of 30 Rock in New York. And that's cool, right? Like, and I don't have to waste 4 years at a university. This is amazing. Why wouldn't I do this? But then there are people that can get lured in by that. And unfortunately, they chase the wrong message here. Anthony Bourdain was a failed chef, and the things he did and romanticized led him to ruin. Did lead him to becoming a great author and reporter and travel expert, but not a chef. And people get lost in that message. He himself has come back and added footnotes in Kitchen Confidential explaining that it is not okay to grab someone's ass in a kitchen. And unfortunately, that needs to be said. And it is getting better. And there are chefs now that are coming forward and changing their culture, especially chefs that knew Bourdain, which is important. The Changs, the Repairs, they're coming out and saying it's okay to cry. It's okay to have all these things happen to you. And the Broy Kitchen, that was in the 80s. You're basing yourself on something that's 30 years old. What industry does that?
What ultimately led you to create Milkcrate Listens?
I wanted to start Milkcrate Listens because I wanted to create an opportunity for people in our industry to talk. And while it is slow and it's picking up a little bit of steam, it has been awesome just to be able to connect with one person, whether they're going to culinary school or they're in a restaurant job for 10 years. They're being able to talk to us anonymously about that has been incredible. And the reason why I did it is no one was. There isn't a hotline for chefs. A lot of the mental health information out there is geared towards a generic audience, which is normally a 9 to 5 group of people. And that's fine. But there isn't a poster for, I just broke up with my girlfriend last night, I'm on the fryer tonight, the guy before me didn't close down the station correctly, I'm out of this stock, the chef is yelling at me, oh my gosh, my parents are coming in town tomorrow. Like, where's that poster? And how do you tell an 18-year-old that just came out of high school how to process those emotions? Or that those emotions are all okay, we've all been there, and we're all here to help you. It's strange, but we're getting there.
Can you explain how it works?
Yeah, so Milkcrate Listens, on our webpage, we have a whole section where we kind of break down, like, if you want to reach out and ask us a question about anything in the industry or mental health in the industry, we are going to approach this through the algae system that we learned in a mental health first aid course. And with our combined experience, we're going to be able to listen and help guide you to who we feel might help you best. And if it's okay with you, we'd love to be able to share your question or comment on our social media on a Thursday, and just a little bit of back and forth. We've had some people that say, hey, I'm not okay with that, that's fine. But we've also had some people that say, like, yeah, sure, like, I'm thinking about getting out of the industry, and that's a great question, and I would love to see your response. We've talked privately with people as well, and we're just like, hey, that job doesn't sound like it's the place for you, or go talk to your chef. It's going to be okay.
Where does your interest in mental health come from? Is that based on personal experience?
It is based on me wanting to help people. I've done a lot of reflecting onto, like, why I'm doing this and why more people should, is I have a general need to help people, or to at least learn how I can help people, or others can help others. My first job was a lifeguard, and I found a lot of similarities where a little bit of prevention here and there can prevent an opioid overdose, a suicide, a breakdown, a prominent chef getting out of the industry. These are all things that we can do to help better our industry and make it stronger. If I, a young business owner who owns a cafe in a small town, can make time for mental health in my business and to help educate our guests and our peers, then what's stopping larger groups of restaurants and better chefs than me from doing it in theirs.
What's stopping some of those larger restaurant groups from taking this issue more seriously?
To be fair, some of them have posters up, and there are conferences that they'll send management teams to, and there are people out there that do have that conversation. But is it enough? Another huge thing is some people don't think there's enough time. There's not enough time to invest in just talking to my staff and understanding where they're coming from. People would much rather spend more time concerning themselves about where their cow is coming from, which is fine. You should be worried about where your food's coming from, but also you should be worried where your people are coming from. If you got a guy that's going through a divorce right now, it is in your best interest to understand what he's going through and how you can help him so he can help you execute your dinner service.
Are there other programs focused on mental health for the restaurant industry, or is this a pretty new conversation to be having?
There have been a lot of groups that have come and gone when it comes to mental health in a Canadian industry. I know that there's groups on a national level that are trying to help and are trying to educate and change the conversation around on all sides of the border, both here in Canada and in America. But again, it's never going to be enough.
You launched Milkcrate Listens in the middle of a pandemic, but was it a response to the pandemic?
We wanted to do something like this in February. We were talking just after we did the course. We're like, oh, we should maybe throw something like this out there and see what happens. But once the pandemic hit, we're like, wow, this sucks. But then we also realized that, hey, what the pandemic has given us is time. And we now have time to figure out how to roll this out properly. And we talked to some friends, and they were able to help us build a web page for it and change our model around a little bit, and away we went.
I'm guessing running and owning a restaurant is stressful at the best of times, let alone during a pandemic, not even knowing whether you'll be able to employ all your staff. What kind of toll does that take?
A heavy one. It's terrifying. I have a small crew of 6 that I've been able to keep on during this, as I've kind of made a personal promise to myself that these are my 6 people, and I'm going to protect them no matter what, and make sure that they're comfortable in the pandemic. This isn't just something that has happened, and if they lost their jobs here, they'd be able to find new jobs. They were my responsibility going into the pandemic. They're my responsibility during the pandemic. And I've been able to adjust our business and figure out ways to bring in an income to be able to keep them all on, even if it's at a minimum amount, especially when it was at its slowest. If we can get to the other side, we'll have that conversation later. Then business started picking up because of all the things we were doing, and we could start to see a normal routine again.
In terms of mental health in the restaurant industry, what changes need to happen?
I think the biggest thing right now is we're going to need to see guests paying more money. And I know it's not a popular thing, but unfortunately, if we're going to start taking chefs and their profession seriously, we're going to need to start paying them seriously. To do that, you would need to start seeing restaurants start to standardize how they operate. Like, oh, this is a Red Seal chef restaurant. You will be guaranteed this experience. You'll be cooked for by trained professionals and served by career servers. It's going to cost you $300. And in that $300 is your meal, our benefit package to our staff, our rent, and all these things. We don't blink an eye when a mechanic says, yeah, it's $200 and I only work for 30 minutes. Why should we do the same, or why shouldn't we do the same for a kitchen or a restaurant? And it is an uncomfortable conversation because immediately the pushback is, well, how is a Caesar salad worth $30? And we can break down the cost for you because romaine, dressing, bacon, croutons, but now we also have a trained professional making your salad for you. He also has a benefit package, and it's you're supporting much more. And also that could lead to a vacuum of non-certified restaurants or Red Seal restaurants that are amazing, that are on the street. The little cubbyhole restaurants that you go into and grab an incredible meal, pay $8 and be on your way. But I don't think we're in a culture yet that supports either of those two visions.
What are some of the ways we as customers and diners can help?
Coming back to the first question is start asking, how are you? And make it loaded. And be honest, especially if you have like a favorite spot. If you got a restaurant that you haven't been to for a while because pandemic or reasons, but you really like them, reach out to them. They will talk to you and they will ask, or they will tell you how they're doing if you ask. and also be ready to say, how can I help? Whether it's, I'd love to have you teach us virtually, or can we buy a whole bunch of gift certificates from you? Can we buy some of your plateware? Can we rent something from you? How about some recipes? Or can you give us a private meal? We're all bored right now, so give them something to do. And also let them know that you're going to be ready as a consumer to enter a new world when that restaurant comes back online.
What do you do to protect your own mental health?
I schedule a therapist appointment every 2 months or so, just to do a nice big check-in. Come in, I got my mental baggage. I also have a group of friends that we play virtual board games on our computers, so socially distanced. Getting outside, seeing nature, it makes a huge difference.
What's your hope for the future of Milkcrate Listens?
I would hope that it gets stolen. And I would love it if other local businesses started doing that themselves. Whether or not it's Restaurant X's Listens, or this is our mental health corner at this restaurant. You're like, oh my gosh, this is great, because now they're talking about it too. And it helps your guests too, because if you're on social media and you're seeing your local restaurant post a mental health awareness thing that, hey, this is maybe what our staff talked about today. Once a week, you just kind of have this conversation. Then you, the customer, know that, wow, not only is this restaurant making like incredible food, they're also making incredible human beings. It's going to make a difference. Until then, we're just going to keep doing what we're doing.
Stephen, I really appreciate you joining us today and shedding some light on this important issue.
Thank you very much for having me on. I hope this was good.
Thanks again to Chef Steven Brochu for being part of this episode. And thank you for listening. If you want to learn more about Milkcrate Listens, we have links in the episode show notes. You can also find a related Tech Life Today interview with Steven, as well as a story featuring Nate personal fitness trainer Kate Andrews. She shares tips for staying healthy physically and mentally during the pandemic. And we've included a few more tips to help you de-stress and protect your mental health. If you're a NATE student and you know of someone who is in crisis, please call the 24-hour crisis line at 780-482-HELP. That's 780-482-4357. You can also visit nate.ca/mental health.